Hello, students. First of all, I have to apologize that I'm a little bit fuzzy today. My daughter colored on my screen, so let's see if I can figure that. But for the moment, I just look like I'm in sepia. Sorry. We are looking at the notes page today, and I just wanted to introduce a couple ideas before we jump into our videos. So these notes are completely and totally optional. You do not have to do them. However, I find it's usually useful for me if I have something I'm like writing down on while I'm learning stuff. Otherwise, ideas that happen kind of just they'll come through to my head and then they'll fall right back out again. So the idea behind this is to give you some place to write down your ideas so that you can remember them and use them later on the assignment. So, we're going to talk about four terms for vocabulary terms before we jump into our videos. And those four terms are indentured servant, chattel slavery, triangle trade, and the middle passage. So you can see them here on my page. So let's talk about indentured servant first. So an indentured servant is somebody who is hired to do a job. Usually they exchange their work for passage. So indentured servants, you could be like a poor person living in London, and somebody would say, hey, I will pay for your passage over to the United States or to the colonial America and for your room and board. So that means like a place to live and food to eat and your clothing. And if you work for me for 3 to 5 years, and then after you work for me, you will be given a certain amount of land to then farm by yourself. And so a lot of indentured servants thought, and especially at the beginning, they're like, this sounds like a really great idea. What they're going to find out, though, is when they get here to the United States, or what's the colonies, it's like, this is something that happened especially in the southern colonies. It's not a great place to live because there's so many diseases. They're living in a swamp. And so a lot of these indentured servants actually die before their work time is up. So for the people who are paying for these indentured servants, it's a really great deal because you pay just like a little bit to get them over here, and then they die before you ever have to actually give them land. And so especially at the beginning, it was a really great deal for the people who were paying for these indentured servants. As time goes on, it gets to be less of a great deal, and you'll watch some of the videos. We'll talk about that. The second term I wanted to introduce you is chattel slavery. So this is the idea that somebody is a slave for life. So we'll put that here, slave for life, and their children are slaves as well. Indentured servant is a servant / slave for a short time. Triangle trade is the system of trade, or the system of trade that was between North America and the Caribbean, Europe and Africa, and it describes why it was profitable for all those three places. So it's a trade route or a series of trade routes that get raw materials from the Americas and Africa to Europe. And then the middle passage, the last one, it describes specifically the branch of triangle trade between Africa and the Americas. And so remember when we first talked about slavery, we talked about euphemisms. So middle passage is another one of those big euphemisms. Millions of people died during the middle passage on that ship ride from Africa to the Americas. It was horrific. It was awful. And we'll talk more about it later, but you just need to know the middle passage describes the place or the ship ride from Africa to the United States for enslaved people. And it was horrific, just like the most awful thing you could possibly imagine. And then it's probably worse than that. So those are your four terms that we need to know before starting out. If you want to work with a friend on this and you know people in the class, go for it. The final assignment for this group of readings is a little bit hard, and so you might want to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. So good luck.